and welcome to this live stream with myself, Ruth from Top Schools. And we have guests this evening, you'll be pleased to know. So without further ado, let me invite my guests in. Hello, Kate. Hello, Nick.
Hi, good evening.
So
Good evening.
good evening. Hi to you, both of you in Malaysia. So Kate and Nick are representing Epsom in Malaysia. And so we are here to discuss boarding school, but boarding school just over the way in Malaysia. So how are you both doing this evening?
Very well,
We're
thank you. Good to
Yeah,
be here.
good.
Thank you so much for joining. Now, if you have questions for Kate or Nick, please post them in the comments and we will get them, or we might have to wait until the end of the conversation. I think we've decided to do that. If you have questions for me, if you could save those for next week, thank you. So, boarding school, I'm a big fan. I just said to you, Kate, off camera that I'm almost finished. My two children have been through boarding school. So I think that's a good place to start. Kate, if you could just, some parents might be on the fence about boarding school, and some people hear some strange things about boarding school that may or may not be true. But from your point of view, what do you think are the benefits that the parents can be thinking about when they're considering boarding?
Yeah, I think first of all, I would say I completely understand when parents feel nervous about making a decision about going to boarding. It's a huge decision for your family and for your children. And I think probably when I think about the history of boarding, that it might come with some concerns in how the children might settle at school, how they might interact with other students. But boarding has really changed over the years. It is all based around ensuring that children feel safe and happy and that they are thriving in the school and that we are putting in place all sorts of mechanisms to make sure that they are happy and succeeding. And at the same time, we like to call it a home from home. We want the children to feel like they are in a home, that they are being looked after, but at the same time, give them the opportunities to grow in their independence and also develop skills of living with people. It might be, living with someone in the same room or in the same corridor, the same dormitory, and all those things that come with it. It's like a real life experience, but in the comfort of a boarding house.
Yeah. Do you think, and this is a question that we get asked a lot, do you think that there are some children that would be more suited to boarding and the reverse? Are there some children where perhaps it's not the best fit?
I think sometimes we see students arriving and we can see that they are going to fit into boarding. They're outgoing. They are immediately interacting with the staff and the other students, and they're looking at all the opportunities which are there. But I wouldn't say you could sort of pigeonhole a child into you're going to succeed in boarding and you're not. We have students that arrive very nervous, very quiet, very apprehensive, as are their parents naturally. And boarding can really give them the opportunity to come out of themselves. We put all these opportunities there. There's lots of things happening. Your child might find an interest in sport or drama or music or debate. And I think boarding isn't tailored to just one particular type of student or personality. That it will feel like a risk to start with, but the benefits are there for every child, no matter what their personality or interests. There's something for everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I do think though that, I don't know if you would agree with this, that what age do they start boarding at your school?
We do have prep school boarding, so they can enter at year 5 all the way through into year 13.
Right. So year 5 is quite young. But if we're talking about like year 7 or year 9, which would be maybe the more typical entry points, I think it's really important to have the buy-in from the child. Do you agree with that? I mean, if you've got a child who's resistant, you don't want to force them into a boarding situation.
Oh, no, you don't. And I think there has to be conversations at home. Um, you know, let's look at the website. Let's look at what boarding means. Maybe let's meet people who have children in boarding and have those conversations, visit the school. see what it's like. Do a taster with us. All of these things will help the child understand what boarding's about, maybe quell the fears that they have and the parents have. But no, you can't just throw a child in without warning. There has to be those conversations and that preparation.
Yeah. But how so you offer taster, a great idea. I think that once they get the chance, because we sometimes say summer school would also be another opportunity to do sort of
Mhm.
some sort of a taster. But once the children experience it, usually that's it, right? There's no going back.
Usually, yeah, they sort of come in and they realize there's sort of independence from home, being with their friends every night's a bit of a sleepover with a structure, obviously. And there's lots of things accessible to them in the evenings. A lot of them, can see their friends. They go out to the sports hall. They've also got teachers on hand to help them with prep or challenges they might be having with their academics or at school. There's always someone around to help them. But yeah, summer school is certainly an option, or some of the holiday camps that we have here to give them a sort of a taster of what it's like. But we also give tasters during term time so that they can come into the lessons as well and experience a real day at school and evening in boarding.
It's a great idea. If I was to walk around the school and ask the children, the students, like, what's it like? What's boarding like? What would they say?
I think there'd be lots of different answers, to be honest. I think they would say that it's busy. I think they would say it's friendly. And I think they would also say sometimes they get very tired.
Mm.
They do have a full day and lots of things happening at weekends. And I think many of them find it, it's not their home. They're always going to have their home with their mum and dad and their parents, but they really do feel a connection with the boarding house, a belonging to it. And, with all the things like our house competitions and things like that, I think they really feel a connection. So I think, the students would have very warm feelings about the boarding house. Um, they might not like it when the devices are taken away to go to sleep.
Well, that's probably another conversation for another time. But I think I mean, certainly that's something I've appreciated as a boarding school parent, that part is regulated and controlled by somebody who's not me. Um, we're going to bring in Nick Gilbert, who is got a very long title. You're the Director of International Marketing and Enrollment.
Mar- Markets and enrollment. Yes, I am.
Markets and Enrollment. Hi, Nick. We'll just keep
Hello.
Kate. So you obviously you heard what Kate was talking about with the boarding, and I know that you've got this the intersection of the boarding house with the pastoral care and the holistic education. So I think you were actually going on to talk a bit about that because it's hard to separate, right? Um, but the student life and the pastoral care. Maybe you could take us through a sort of a typical day. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think one of the things that I'd like to sort of say is that for Epsom pastoral care, we call it unconditional pastoral care because, every child needs somebody. They need people around them, looking after them, looking out for them, making sure they're okay. So if I think about the pastoral care in the boarding house themselves, we have
To support.
yeah, so there it tells you a little bit about the adults that are in the house. We have what we call resident staff. The house master or mistress is the person who manages the whole boarding house and oversees the pastoral care within that house. And working with them and residential living in the boarding house, we call an assistant house mistress and a residential tutor. And we also have grads as well that live in the houses and take care of the students. And they work together. They know the students extremely well. They take time to get to know them. And they are in and out of the house a lot. And they don't just do their sort of scheduled duties on the timetable. They'll be popping in and out the house, maybe seeing students if there's a concern or making sure certain things are happening. We then have other staff that come into the houses. We have our pastoral assistants that come in every evening and part of the weekend. And we also have teachers that come in for rotas during prep time and evening time, and also at the weekend to do activities or take trips. But if it was a typical school day, the students would be woken up probably about 6:45, and then they would
Ooh,
be
that's early.
well, we have an early start. Yes. Well, it's a couple of things. There might be a staggered wake up. So they would wake up, they would register to make sure they're awake, and they'd be woken up by maybe the matron who's in the house for the day, and just checking on the students, making sure they're okay. If anybody's unwell, then we'd know, and we'd send them down to make sure they get some. We have nurses on site, so they would be sent down to the nurses medical centre to be reviewed. The rest of the students would be expected to go down to breakfast in the dining hall. Then they would come back to the boarding house and get themselves ready for school. And again, another check-in, just make sure you're okay. And with the younger students, the prep school students in year 5 and year 6 and possibly year 7, just checking the bags are all sorted and everyone's ready to go to school. And then the school day starts at 8:10. And then they're into the school day with their teachers. And then in school, every student is a member of a tutor group, and they have their tutor, who's a teacher who will meet with them daily, and just check in with them after lunch to make sure everything's going okay, and give some pastoral guidance to students. Then at 4 o'clock, lessons finish, and then we go into co-curricular. And between lessons finishing and co-curricular, they have a bit of time in-house, and then they're back in-house at 5:30. Again, register, check in, make sure you're right, off to the dining hall, back in again, and then into prep and the evening routines in that area. But there will always be, in the evening, there will be 3 members of staff visible and around and helping and supervising. And there will also be another resident member of staff available if needed to come on to duty, and a senior leadership member of staff on duty with the phone to make sure if there's anything that's an emergency, we're all covered. So there's a lot of care, but it's all about making sure the students feel happy, cared for, safe, and are doing the things they need to be doing to make sure they're successful at school.
Yeah, safe is a word that is coming up so frequently in our
Yes.
conversations. But I really like what you said earlier, that I've never heard it before, but the, sleepover with a structure, and is structured. And that makes, my kids say it, that they are really, really busy and they really are tired. It's quite intense. How do you then sort of balance that? Like, are they Saturday school? Is a half day school Saturday? And then where's their free time? Where are they really having a chance to sort of decompress and kind of just do nothing?
So in terms of school week, I would say that the time for decompressing in the school is in the evening. They have a little bit of time between CCA and dinner where they're with their friends and they're chilling out. But once they finish their homework, their prep time, as we call it, they have an hour and a half, some of them, where they will go and see their friends in another boarding house. They will call home. A lot of them opt to go to the sports hall, which is open and supervised for an hour and a half each evening. They can use the gym. They play badminton together, basketball. They're always with their friends. It would also be an opportunity there to speak to a member of staff if there's some concerns or worries, or for a member of staff to touch base with a student at that time. So in the weekdays, I would say it's probably that slot from about 8:30 to, depending on the age of the child, it varies, but probably around 8 to about 9:15, 9:30, where there's really that downtime and they're out and about meeting each other, obviously within a structure and boundaries, but they have those times. At the weekend, we don't have any formal Saturday morning lessons, but the students up to year 10, so that'd be up to 14, 15 years old, they have an opportunity to do Saturday sport for an hour or two. And a lot of them go in again to the sports hall, and it's not just traditional sports then, they might also play things like dodgeball or t-ball and things like that to get them out and about and being visible. And then it's after that really, which is their downtime. There's not always trip, there's not always an activity that goes on for the whole afternoon. But within that time, we have what we call sort of the chill time, where they can, as I said, visit the other boarding houses. If they're older, they can go down into the local shopping area to, have coffee with their friends or have a meal or cake. And then the younger students can go down supervised with a member of staff. And then the
Yeah.
evenings we have, time again. There might be a movie night or a bingo night or some sort of activity. Also within that, it's about bonding with each other and chilling out and having a nice time.
Yeah. But yeah, it is very structured and very busy. I think I speak to a lot of boarding school children, which they appreciate, and also I think as parents, we would appreciate that so much because, they're having all these rich experiences and all of these opportunities to do things that we don't have to organize for them.
Yeah.
So
They can chill out in their rooms, sometimes when we go around on a weekend where there's not a designated time, then, they're chilling in their rooms with friends, they're hanging out in the common areas, in the boys' houses, they might be having a game on PS4 or playing pool or, it can be a very chilled out and very relaxed atmosphere as well.
yeah, we're all. I'm sorry, we're talking. We need to come to Nick. No, it's great. Sorry, I just lost track of the time. Because Nick is going to you take care of the academic and the co-curricular, which Kate has touched on. But let's not forget this is Asia, and parents are very, very interested in their children's academics. So shall we talk a bit about that? Is that something that you can talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We at Epsom College, we Malaysia, we follow the same curriculum. Sister school.
Oh, I think we're losing Nick a little bit. Kate, can you hear Nick?
Yeah, I can step in there. Yeah, so the academic curriculum is based on the British system. So
Yeah.
GCSE, they would do it for year 10 and then GCSE, and then levels. But in terms of ensuring
academic program, sorry. Has Nick completely frozen out? Nick? Sorry, this is
Sorry, I've come
technical
back on
issues.
now.
We are live. Nick,
Hello.
hi. Shall we?
Hello. Not sure what happened there.
Oh, okay. It seems
Hi.
that you're back. So Kate just introduced the British system that you have at Epsom. Would you be able to pick it up from there?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know if she's just talked about we do the different key stages. So
Get that far.
we didn't get that far. Okay, no worries. So we follow the British curriculum and obviously we follow the key stages. So we start with the early years, but boarding, as Kate said, starts at a bit later on in the key stages where we'll start preparing them really, gearing up for GCSEs and A levels, which are an important part of why we believe in the structure of the British system. Really, at that when they come into Epsom, it's understanding what will benefit them and understand how they can succeed, and then what will they really like and how they will succeed. So really, what we will do is we'll work with them for their GCSE options. Um, Sorry, Ruth.
So for somebody who's not familiar, just so we've got this visual here. So GCSE will be key stage 4.
It will be key stage. Um,
3 and
3 is
4.
when they start looking at options, and 4 is when
Mm.
they actually start studying it. Key stage
Yeah.
5 will be when they actually do their A levels.
Yeah.
And we will work through that. That's part of the British system, the same system which Epsom UK does as well. Um, Ultimately, as we've just discussed, academia is really important to us. Why is it really important to us? Because we want everyone to go on to where they need to go on to. And most, if not all our students will go on to British universities or US universities or some of the top universities in Asia. And we will prepare them. And I think for me, one of the benefits of boarding is I always call it the 3 Ps, which are the people, the place, and the preparation. And the preparation to university is really, really key to us. As part of that preparation, we will do things like Epsom Live, which they'll get to meet business leaders. And we'll do Epsom internships. So we'll make sure that they have internships into some of the top or corporate organizations here in Malaysia. But academia is we will work with them. A level is very important to us because it's a very in-depth way of them to learn. It's a trusted academic program. And we have a really great director of higher education will work with them to lead them into ultimately a good university. But I think what's also important. Oh, sorry, Ruth.
No, I was just going to ask, actually, what was I going to ask? We've got a slide on the university destinations in a moment, but how many GCSEs do your children typically take and how many A levels? And yeah, I think just to clarify that.
It's about 14 or 15 GCSE options.
Oh, no, no. Oh, how many
Uh,
do they take?
okay,
10.
I'm going to look at K. 10. There you go.
Yeah.
10.
But it's
All
so
right.
not,
Maybe 7.
but it will depend on we have a varying pathway at IGCSE. So we obviously have an intake because our intake is so international.
Yeah.
We have varying levels of English. Our first language confident English speakers will probably take 10. And then if you've got a student who is maybe struggling more with English on what we call the EAL pathway, they could take anywhere, but from 6 upwards. So
Right.
there is variation there depending on the child and their background.
And if they only take 6 or 7 GCSEs, is that going to impact any university options? Is that going to
No, the reason why we stick to 6 is because that is the minimum number of GCSEs. Obviously, we'd expect also to get equivalent C grade or equivalent because in maths and English, because that is
Yeah.
what they would need entry into the UK universities. But the idea is to reduce the number if they're struggling with their English level, so they're more likely to get the C grade equivalent numbers.
Yeah, and that carries over for A levels, right? Because I see that we could have an entirely different conversation, which is the benefits of A levels as a opposed to other options out there. But one argument that I often hear is that to focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy, and to eliminate like a lot of those other um, subjects that might be superfluous to requirements. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
I've
think that's
taught
one of the.
in a B
Right.
school and an A-level school, and the IB is very broad and does give opportunities. But as a parent myself of a child in year 12, I'm very happy that he's on the A-level path because he's focusing on the subjects that he likes. And we do have, most students will do 3 A-levels with the extended essay. But we do have students doing 4, and previously we have had students doing 5. Obviously, it depends on what they want to go into, levels of achievement. But we try to open it up to the individual student, what's best for them, and what they can achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
And it,
that's the benefit of A levels as well. If you think about going on to university, you will start choosing and defining what you want to study. And A level is part of that process where you're going to start specifying exactly what you want to study. And it's preparation of in-depth learning, which is what you have to do when you get to university level.
Mhm. Well, it depends where you go to university, I suppose, because if you're going to the States or some other systems, they are able to be much more broad. Are they not? Um,
Yeah,
it,
I think,
I'm still learning.
sorry, Ruth.
Go ahead.
Yes, you're right. So in the US universities, my son is in year 12, so we've been researching a few options recently.
Okay.
And so certainly the US has that breadth of when you arrive in that first year and second year, and then you specialize later on. But I think the beauty of Epsom, yes, we offer A levels, but it's a very broad range of A levels. But as Nick said earlier, there's a full host of other things happening beyond the lessons that gives sort of a breadth of understanding of different subject areas, like the Epsom Live talks, the societies that they might belong to, or the visiting guest speakers.
Mm.
There are all these things that keep that breadth within their A-level study that's beyond classroom.
No, I think it's definitely worth pointing out that I think there's this perception out there that A levels are too narrow. I mean, being broad, doing the IB, having the breadth, that's good. And A levels is too narrow, but that's certainly much more. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, for sure. Um, which one of you mentioned the extended essay? I'm not sure. Is that similar to is that you did, Kate? Is that similar to EPQ or is it similar but different? Something as
Is
well
it
as
going all platinum? Yeah, so
an IB, right? Okay.
yes, because I used to teach in the IB school.
Okay, so it's EPQ, right?
Good, sorry. So yeah, it's the same idea where they choose
Yeah.
a topic, search it,
Yeah.
and they write their,
Or extended project qualification, is it?
extended application. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So academics, obviously we could put up a slide. I think there is a slide there about the university destinations. I think they're not, maybe Ryan could get that up and I will show it. In terms of like enriching activities, I think we've touched on it a little bit. Is there anything else, Nick, that you want to mention for the academic curricular
Yeah, no, I think
program?
one of the key aims we have at Epsom is understanding that academia is really important, but also the other side, the co-curricular activities are going to be really important. We have 100 different extracurricular activities that they can do across this 50-acre site, which is really, really important. But actually, we also, which I would always call it, the Epsom boarding plus, is we have these amazing academies which are part of our site as well. And they are an opportunity to excel whilst keeping your academic standards high. And that can be quite difficult if you think about it as a parent, where you might pick them up from a day's school and then take them to a music class or a tennis class, and each teacher wants the best out of that one student. Well, by being on one campus, by being on one site, we can work together. So we have the Moratoglu Tennis Academy. Patrick Moratoglu was the coach of Sir William Williams. They have a main site in Nice. We are a main site connected to a school in Asia. We have 11 tennis court complex, and I tell you, Ruth, I didn't know until I came here that you have to have all these different tennis courts depending on what you want to do. So we have a US Open court, we have an Australian Open court, we have clay courts from France. I didn't know until I came here, but you needed to have all this breadth of tennis courts to really excel. We also have the ECM Golf Academy. This is amazing. Ruth, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm more of a mini golf person. Unless there's a windmill, I'm not necessarily great at doing golf. But here, to have the opportunity to play golf at our golf driving range and be 8 minutes away from an 18-hole golf course, we can allow those students to succeed. And you think golf in terms of future preparation of business is really, really important. Most schools don't have that facilities on site, so we're very lucky to have that on site.
Yeah, and you
Sorry.
the football as well.
The football as well, yeah. We also have La Liga Academy, which means we have a 4G football pitch on site, and all those academies, as well as our new music academy, which is starting this year, which again allows those that want to excel in music to have extra classes, extra support, whilst also not affecting their academic standards and their important academic abilities. It's really important. And it's just by being on one site with communication going around.
And a school that supports that as well. We've had a few students in recent years that wouldn't be able to choose a different school because it takes them away from their activity, whatever their sport or their elite training program is. So so for budding tennis players, golf players, footballers, and musicians, they get to do it all on the one site, again, without parent involvement, without parent stress.
It's true, but I think Kate would probably back me up. But the pastoral care that we provide means actually you've got someone still looking after that child, because the house parents, the matrons, and all the support they get means you're not getting them pushed and pulled even within one site.
Yeah, amazing opportunities. These children, they don't realize how lucky they are.
I know, it's true.
I think we're almost running out of time. And we had your coaches over in Hong Kong. I think it was in March. So if for any parents that were there, if you missed it, maybe we'll try to do something again. But it was great to meet them. And the children had a what do you call it? Like like a mini taster session with these coaches, and I think some of them came over to join you at Epsom in Malaysia. So
Yeah, and I think we're hoping to do something similar in January. So watch this
awesome.
space.
Yeah, we'll put all the links and that. Okay, we are almost out of time. Thank you so much, Kate and Nick, for joining me. And we do have some questions. I'm so sorry, I have to go. I actually need to take a flight, and we're going to bring in Ryan. Hello, Ryan is my
Hello.
colleague. He's going to help you to moderate some of the questions. If any of you have questions, now is the time. This is your last chance to ask a question in the comments below, and Kate and Nick will answer them live. And we did have a few questions that were submitted during. So thank you so much. And I look forward to having Epsom back in Hong Kong. I will have to get over there and see the school for myself. I've heard so much about it. It sounds amazing. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you.
So just a few questions here. I'll put them up on screen. I think maybe this first question, I'll show it to you now. Thank you for sharing. There are a lot of good things I hear. Malaysia has credible international schools. If you can summarize what really makes Epsom stand out. Maybe this would be a good question for you, Nick.
I'll go for that. Look, do you know what? So much stuff stands out at Epsom, I must admit. Someone who has come from the UK myself, who's worked at boarding schools myself in the UK, Epsom is really top when it comes to not just a school in Malaysia, but a British boarding school in Malaysia. Why do I say that? I think it's boarding. Listen, that really does stand out. We have fantastic pastoral care, but we have fundamentally boarding houses which were built to be a boarding house. Now, you could go to some schools where actually those school boarding houses are perhaps in original houses that weren't actually originally made for a boarding house. Well, our site was produced 10 years ago. So everything that you see was produced to be a boarding school. And therefore, we don't have students that want to be in certain rooms because they're a bit bigger or they're a bit wider, or they want to be in a certain house because it's got more facilities. We have designed it so there's equality amongst our boarding houses. So I think that's first and foremost, but also our site. Some people say to me, wait a minute, you're in Kuala Lumpur, you're not in the middle of Kuala Lumpur. And I will always say to them, actually, if you go to the UK, most British boarding schools are not in the middle of city centres. You won't find one in the middle of London, central London. You won't find one in central Manchester. Why? Because you need space. And 50 acres you are not going to find in Kuala Lumpur, but you'll find it where we are located, about 15 minutes away from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. That space enables us to have a space to learn for all the different classrooms for group work, classes for individual work. You'll also be able to have space to live, and that's really important. And we've just talked about that in terms of boarding and space for facilities. And we've touched on that earlier this evening about the golf and the tennis and all those 100 different co-curricular activities. But also, you also have space for nature. And I think people often forget about that. When you're in the middle of these cities and you've got traffic and pollution, we are situated in a lovely 50 acres away from the city, which means kids can be in a better environment. So I think location's really important, and also boarding is really important. But I would also say the university applications, we have a really strong process for university applications. Again, I touched about that earlier on about Epsom Live and the internships. Finally, I'm going to give it just like that final chance is the academies. And again, we talked about that earlier, but I have never seen a boarding school which has the facilities that we have, the ECM Golf, the tennis, the La Liga Academy, and now the Music Academy. It is really 5-star when it comes onto boarding, and they are perhaps, without me going on too much, the reasons I think Epsom stands out.
Yeah, it's hard to fit it all in. I can imagine that there seems so many positive things about the school. I can tell that you're quite passionate about it. So I think we have a few more questions. Maybe this next one, maybe Kate could answer. What is the academic style of Epsom? Many international schools seem too focused on work-life balance. while some schools feel overly academic and stressful. Where does Epsom sit?
That's a good question. I would say in the middle, just balance. Of course, we want our students to be academically ambitious. We want them to leave Epsom with good sets of grades that takes them to the next part of their journey in their education, the university they want to go to, the course they want to study. So we would say, we want to be considered that academically ambitious, but we do also want to understand the idea of balance. We don't just want our students to go into the next phase of their life with just grades. We want them to be well-rounded. We want a sort of holistic development for our students. Epsom is not just about going to your classroom, learning your course, taking your exams. As Nick said earlier, we've got all of these facilities. I think earlier Nick said about having over 100 different CCAs available throughout the academic year. We want our students to be well-rounded. We want them to have, character. We want to build their character. It could be integrity. It could be kindness. It could be resilience. We want our students to be balanced in terms of just not academic ambition, but to have all those characteristics and skills that will enable them to be successful afterwards. So a little bit of work-life balance and a little bit of academics come together, happy students, hopefully great results, and not too much stress along the way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. I think the next question is a really good one. As a parent myself, I'd love to know your response to this as well, Kate. So here it is. How do you ensure the safety of the boarders? We're sending you our children. How are you ensuring that they're going to be safe there?
This is a question that I often get, actually, and I think also for many of our parents that come from different countries, they're trusting us with their child, and not only trusting them in a boarding school, but a boarding school in a completely different country that perhaps they don't know very well the country. So I think there's lots of layers to safety for boarders. I mean, I guess just in practical terms, if you were to arrive at the school, you would see that the site is completely secure with a fence and security guards checking students in and out and any visitors in and out. And obviously we have our visitors protocols and signing people in. And even our security guards would patrol the campus in the evenings and make sure all through the night, 24/7. CCTV cameras, etc. So in terms of just the practical idea of safety, then we have a secure site. But I guess safety comes in many different forms. For a child to feel safe, they need to feel part of something or that there are people around for them. So I said earlier, every house has a number of staff who are available 24/7. In an evening, there might be the house marshal or mistress, the teacher, the pastoral assistant, during the day, the matron, our medical team. But also we have a senior leader on duty every night. So there's that layer as well in terms of adult supervision and people that students can be in contact with if there's problems. But also if a parent is worried about something, there's always someone they can contact. So in terms of, if they're worried about a child, in terms of, maybe they're feeling unwell or their child has been in contact with them saying they're a bit stressed about something, there's always someone there for them. So, we've got that security, we've got the adult supervision, and just simple things, I guess. In the evenings, it's a lit campus. We've got clear areas which are out of bounds, and there's clear rules and routines for how we want students to behave around the campus. So, it's a really good question, but there's quite a number of layers to that idea of safety. So I hope that answers that question.
Well, I think there's one more layer, and somebody I think maybe asked this question almost as a follow-up, and that goes with bullying. Is bullying a concern? So we talk about safety, from the outside, but safety on the inside of the school. Every school seems to have some sort of bullying, but how a school manages it, I think, is this question. Is bullying a concern, and how do you address it?
Okay. yeah, I think you're right. Like every school, bullying is a concern, not necessarily because it's rife in the school, but we want our children. I think the phrase that we use is psychological safety, that they feel safe in their own mind and their space, and that is really something that any school is concerned about, and we address it in a lot of different ways. We, you know, through the way in which we have our pastoral systems set up, you know, through tutor groups and PSHE lessons, we sort of, I guess in many ways, we formally teach how we want our students to interact together and the type of characteristics that we want our students to embody, and that's things like kindness, being respectful and tolerant of each other, and making sure that people are supported. That's the things that we do. And I think within that idea of building an idea of inclusivity and kindness, our students hopefully that will be part of them. That's what they see as a positive characteristic. We do simple things as well, like we have Kindness Week, we have We Care Week, and all of these things sort of embody that idea of treating each other with respect and kindness. And it, you know, I don't think you would meet any student who would say that we as a school don't embody those key ideas of kindness and respect. And, you know, I'm not going to say there is no bullying. Of course, we have a few instances of it, but it's not tolerated. And if it's reported, it will be immediately investigated, and we will follow up on that straight away and try and come to the, you know, find out the reasons why this is happening and try and address it front on. We don't hide from it at all. But I think the biggest thing is that our students know that we highly value kindness and respect. And I think that's something that we embody, and that's something that we project out every single day, in the school day, in the assemblies, in the boarding houses. We have things like wellbeing ambassadors, peer mentors. All of these things work together to bring our community together and support each other.
Okay, great. Yeah, it sounds like you've done a great job of building the culture to support that. No bullying. So we've got another question here. I'll pull it up now. You mentioned university application support. Can you elaborate? I guess we did talk a little bit about universities and where students from your school go, but maybe you could kind of give a little bit more detail on the kind of support the students get.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, listen, I think in terms of what I've already mentioned, actually, the application support already starts really early on, because by going to a boarding school, we do prepare you by going to university for the independence that you'll learn by going to a boarding school. And also the 100 CCAs will also be part of that benefit to your application. So it starts from the moment you walk through the doors of Epsom. But really, obviously, when you hit the sixth form is when we will really work with you in terms of the application that you need to do to go to the universities. We're very lucky to have a really great director of higher education. She is actually based in the sixth form centre. So we have a sixth form centre on site, and she's based in there. And that's a really important location, because actually that's where the sixth formers will do their work, will hang out, will do their Epsom live talks. To have her there means actually they can reach out to her anytime. She has an open door policy for that very reason, that they can reach out to her. And indeed, she reaches out to them, and she'll make sure that how they're going, what they're thinking, looking at the different courses they can do, looking at options they might want to consider, looking at different universities. She's very well connected, not just in UK universities, but the US as well, US colleges and the Ivy League schools, to make sure that they are choosing the right schools and writing the right applications. We operate a very much an individualized basis, because not everyone will go to the same university. And so actually, and it's right that they don't, because each university will have expertise in different subjects. So she'll work with them. In terms of Oxbridge, we're very lucky to have an Oxbridge mentor who will work with those who want to go into Oxbridge to understand that very specific application process. And indeed, we will have specific mentors and support for those who want to go to US colleges. So it is a very much individualized basis when it comes onto university applications. It starts much earlier on here at Epsom, but actually we want to make sure that whatever route they want to go down, whether it's US, whether it's UK, whether it's down certain subjects, they're given the best support from our team here at Epsom, and they're given the best opportunity, whether that's with their statements or their interviews, or indeed choosing the right university that best suits them.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think there's just one last question. Let me put it up now. And that is, does every student have access to the Meritoglu tennis, the golf, and the La Liga programs at your school? Is that open to everyone, or just select students?
So there's different levels of support that you might want to do, or different levels that you might want to access those 3 academies. Some people can do it as part of their CCAs if they wish to. Some might want to take it on to a different level, and we have 3 kind of different levels that they can participate with those sports. And each of those levels require extra time, extra support, extra time from the teachers. So students can have access. It's just the amount of access will very much determine on how much them and their families want them to do at Epsom during their studies. But it's very much a conversation which is had between families and the school when they start, or indeed as they go through the school. But yes, we have them on site so that people can have access to them if they choose to.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I think, we don't have any more questions, but for those of you watching on replay, feel free to put your questions in the comments and we will get to them. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Nick, for joining us, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.